the Indiana Weekly Basketball Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Indiana Basketball Weekly Show is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, former Indiana Hoosier, 1981 National Championship team, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
And still a member of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, I'm in
you're
talks
going to get
with
this right. You're going to get this right one time. The intro, you're going to get it all down right. I'm going to type it up for you and put it on a text message to you just to read off verbatim. Okay, like a cue card. You know, we'll get you a teleprompter.
So basically, Steve, you're mad because I didn't bring up the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame again.
My ring is on its way, I'm being told.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Of course, I had to pay for that ring, but that's okay. It's on its way.
Really? You had to pay for your own ring?
Yeah, of course we had to pay for our own ring. There's nothing free anymore.
I bet Steve Alford didn't have to pay for his ring.
No, his dad probably paid it for him. He's the president of the Hall of Fame.
Nah.
So I bet Steve didn't pay for his own ring. That's okay. Steve can't afford a new ring either. He better start saving his money after watching UCLA play out here.
Yeah, he might need to be looking for a job soon. He might be down there.
He may be living off his savings account before long too. So I don't know.
Yeah, he'll be down coaching at Rose Holman before he's done.
Oh God, I don't know. Does Newcastle have a JUCO college there or something like that, or?
I don't think so.
Go home. Everybody always ends up going home. That's what they always say.
Yeah, so, maybe go to Earlham. Richmond's not too far from there. I'm doing great. I mean, did the fires finally go out in L.A.?
Well, they're still burning. Unfortunately, we lost the fireman the other day, which was very tragic and very sad as hard as these guys work. It's really kind of interesting out here. It was a major news story, and there's still some very serious fires out here. We understand that Ellen and Oprah's houses are in jeopardy now, along with a lot of people. It's not a funny situation to make light of, obviously, but they become pretty commonplace out here, and you don't really hear a lot about them out here anymore. Up until yesterday, I think they lost a firefighter finally, as brave as those sons of bitches are to get out there and get involved in this mess. And we've had some Santa Ana winds kick up here again the last couple of days, which just throw everything into the mix and just change the climate dramatically almost overnight. So we haven't got them under control yet, but it is amazing how they can find the very place where these things start. They found one of the fires started by homeless people trying to cook dinner on an open grill, open fire, and it burnt down about 10 houses, multi-million-dollar houses in Bel Air.
Damn.
So that's what started it. And they can track it all the way back down, so they'll get to the root of them. But anyway, it's okay. They're making do.
All right. We haven't been here in about a week because the Hoosiers haven't played all week. And their last game, they lost to the Louisville Cardinals 71-62, which dropped the Hoosiers to 5-5. And Steve, once again, this team can play with anybody for 30 to 35 minutes, but for some reason they can't put an entire 40 minutes together.
This is going to get to start sounding like a broken record here pretty quickly, Mike. I mean, it really is, because I think this is about the epitome of this basketball team. It's a 500 basketball team because they won't do the 100% of the things they need to do to commit to elevating this program to the next level at what becomes basically a critical time now as we get into the Big Ten. You are right. It's just a team that will give you about 30 minutes worth of effort. And I don't know if it's a little self-doubt that creeps into them because teams play hard. You know, the caliber teams they played recently are good caliber basketball programs. I mean, it's not automatic win basketball they've been playing, and that's good. I like to see that. I think they learn a lot much more from that. But what bothers me is I continue to see the same mistakes. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start right off the top. You know, we have two guards in our basketball program that are seniors. And they need to be thinking about cementing a legacy for themselves right now. I mean, Yogi came out his senior year and really cemented his place in every Hoosier's heart, created a legacy for himself of being a leader, a guy who can win basketball teams by his leadership on the court, both as a statistical leader and as an emotional leader for this club. And here's a golden opportunity for two kids, Newkirk and Johnson, with a coach that has all of the backing and support, all of the height and all of the awe of people wanting to see Indiana rebirth itself again. Where Crean, when Yogi was doing it, Crean was pretty well starting his decline on his way out at that point in time, and different obstacles to fight. But here's two kids that just are not stepping up to the plate and showing the leadership they need to be showing. This team is now starting to lose games that they should be winning. And before, I would say we were in games that we maybe didn't think we'd really be in. Duke is a great example. We never really got kicked out of that basketball game till the very end. Seton Hall was the same thing. Louisville, same thing. And we're in the lead at halftime, but these kids are not on the court doing the things they need to do as seniors to get these kids over this hump and teach these young kids and to help Coach Miller on the bench and get things done. And I'm getting a little disappointed in their lack of willingness to spread themselves out all over the court on both ends of the floor. And what I saw against Louisville, and I know I'm talking long here, I'm going to shut up after the statement, but what I saw with Johnson and Newkirk were two kids who effectively engaged into the game when they thought it was an opportunity for them to score points.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from the game. When they didn't think there was an opportunity for them to put points on the board, they didn't seem to want to be too engaged in the basketball games. And I'll let you comment on that statement.
Yeah, and Johnson's a kid that played 35 minutes, 0 points, 0 assists, 2 rebounds. Newkirk, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So these kids played 67 minutes combined and scored 13 points. Deron Davis, Juwan Morgan, I think both played well, and they did it in 23 minutes each. They put up 31 points. So if Johnson and Newkirk, especially Johnson in this game, would have done anything, this team would have won this game going away. And it all goes back to what you always harp on, which is leadership. And with Johnson and Newkirk, I think combined they should be the leaders of this team. But I think they're more important about their own, or more worried about their own stat line than they are the team's success. And I think if you had a leader on this team, that leader would put these guys in check. But right now, there's nobody to put them in check. They're the guys that I think Archie Miller hopes will become the leaders. But we're 10 games in, and they're nowhere near that.
Not at all. And I'm going to go back to what you opened your statement up with, was your statistical analysis of their game against Louisville and lack of points scored, lack of this, lack of that. What I'm going to tell you, what really hit home to me, and something that's not on a stat sheet, neither one of those kids they both had a tremendous lack of impact in the game. And I'll give you a fact, scorers. I saw Mike Woodson play games where he didn't score, but dadgummit, Mike Woodson had impact.
Yeah.
If he wasn't going to score, he was doing other things on the basketball court. Yogi Ferrell, if he wasn't scoring tonight because Blackman was or somebody, he was having impact in another way. Steve Alford with Keith Smart. I can go down the list. Isaiah with Whitman. Whitman with Isaiah. Abernathy, Buckner, Benson, May, all those guys. If they weren't, we put this glorification on scoring as leadership, and it's not. But I'm going to tell you, I saw the game. Neither Johnson nor Newkirk had impact on that basketball game at all. Sadly, what I'm seeing is what I thought was going to be our weakness was our inside play. Those kids inside, Davis and Morgan and those guys, they're over exceeding my expectations greatly. Our inside play is keeping us in these ball games for 30 to 35 minutes. You would think our guard play could step up and carry us for the other 5 to 10 minutes they need to start winning these games rather than just being in these games. And, it's okay to say that when it's a new puppy. The puppy's peeing on the carpet again. That's okay. But the dog eventually needs to be trained that it needs to scratch at the door and go outside and have impact and pee on the grass outside. And I'm not seeing that at all. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a real downfall for this basketball team when they get into the Big Ten grind right now. Because I'm listening to these analysts come up, and everybody wants to sing the praises of number 30 every time he comes into the game, and that's Colin Hartman. And God, I've known Colin since he was a 7th grader, when he moved into my son's school district, and he's a great kid, great family. But Colin's just not a natural leader on this basketball club. I mean, I don't think he's equipped. He's not getting the minutes, first of all, whether he's not earning the minutes or the coaches don't have enough confidence in him to give him the minutes to be on the – if he's not on that floor enough to provide the on-court leadership he needs to be doing. It's almost like he's a great little story for these analysts to talk about when he comes in the game. So they've got something other to talk about and don't really want to harp on the fact that Newkirk and Johnson aren't having any impact on the game. So it's got to come from those two guys. They're both seniors. I mean, those two and Colin are it in terms of what a golden opportunity for these two young men to really, like I said, cement and establish a legacy of their place in the lore of Indiana basketball. And both of them at this point in time are not living up to it in any way, shape, or form from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and headed into the Notre Dame game, as you talked, I mean, this whole game is going to hinge on what these kids can do. Because up front with Deron Davis, Juwan Morgan, these kids are doing what they need to do. I mean, when you got Robert Johnson sitting in there and he's 4 for his last 19 shooting, 2 for his last 16 from the three-point range. I mean, if you look back at the kid, I think against Notre Dame in 2015, he scored 17 points in the game. You know, he was hitting threes from long range. And if he can do that with the production they're getting inside with Morgan and them, this team's capable of beating anybody. But right now, I just don't have a whole lot of hope that this is going to change anytime soon, because if you're a senior, I mean, and we've seen it for 4 years from Newkirk and Johnson, where they'll be great one game and then they disappear the next game. Or one of them plays well and it seems like, put it like this, even this year, if one of them plays well, it seems like the other one isn't. And I think that is the sign of a lack of leadership, because a leader to me makes everybody around them better. And when these guys play well, as you said, it seems like it is all concentrated on a me aspect, where they're not worried. If they're hot, they're just worried about me. And if they're not, everything falls apart.
Great observation, in the sense that there are only X number of shots you can get up in a game, X number of points you can put up on a board. And you're right, they seem to be wanting to divvy those up. And if one's good, the other's not. But these guys have to understand that the leadership is impact. It's finding ways. There's an old saying: champions find a way. Champions find a way to make contributions, and if it's not by scoring points, it's by leading the defensive floor, leading the charge, getting people to communicate defensively, getting people to be in position to help defensively. We're still getting killed. We're still trying to play post defense one-on-one. We're not taking away the baseline. We're not blocking out. We're not cutting off passing lanes. We're not in ball side, man side position. And I just find it very hard to believe, after watching Coach Miller coach at Dayton for the years that he's coached there, and saw how aggressively he coaches defensively, and see the lack of aggressiveness we're showing, that it's coming from the coaching staff. I'm not going to put that on Coach Miller at this point in time. It's just a lack of ability to transitionalize from practice to game, and they get back into this athletic mode of playing and just want to play athletic basketball. And I don't think that Coach Miller is going to do what Crean did, which he wanted to coach athletic coaching, because I don't think Crean knew what the hell he was doing other than coaching athletic coaching. Let the kids go play. We'll beat you 96-92 if we're having a good shooting night. I think Miller is a smart basketball coach, wants to step up, wants to beat teams with tact, with precision, with strategy. And this team's not getting it done. And it's really, it goes back to what I said from day one. The key to this team having any success this year was going to come from leadership. You got to pull these kids together. We're seeing them being able. I have no doubt in my mind they can play with anybody. Athletically, talent-wise, I mean, they've proven that in every big game they played. They've not blown out except other than Indiana State, which, okay, I'll give you the fact that was the first game of the year and it was an emotional game. But other than that, we really haven't gotten blown out by anybody. We've been in the lead at halftime of a lot of these games. And what's going on here? Well, it's leadership. It's flat-out leadership. So, and if you want to talk about emotion, Duke, everybody wants to point toward Duke. Notre Dame will be a very emotional basketball game, maybe the most emotional they've played to date. One, it's in Indianapolis. Okay, two, Notre Dame's got one of the biggest fan bases of sports supporters of any college in the United States, probably in the world. And Notre Dame will end up in a major bowl game this year simply because they bring the people. They'll, Conseco Fieldhouse or whatever it's called now, Banker's Life, I don't even know. Every 2 years they change the name of that thing. But that place will be just as filled with Notre Dame people as there will be IU people. IU made a run last year and came back at the end of the game when Colin came back in and made a really Herculean effort and got the team motivated and got them going. And they beat Notre Dame last time they played on that floor. There's a lot that Notre Dame wants to prove. They're a well-coached basketball club. They're a very talented basketball club. They play in the big, the ACC, with some of the best teams in the country. This is as tough a game as Indiana will have played all year, even probably more so than Duke, because Notre Dame is more seasoned than Duke was. Duke is just a bunch of great athletic freshmen, very talented freshmen. But Duke is a well-coached, well-seasoned basketball club that has multiple ways of beating you.
Yeah, and they've got three guys that are seniors that, especially in Bonzie Colson, Matt Farrell, and then Martinez Gebben, whatever the hell his name is. I'm terrible with foreign names. But those three seniors there, very good players. And I think Notre Dame also over the last few years has the experience of making deep runs in the NCAA tournament. And outside of the little hiccup against Ball State, I mean, the only team they've really lost to was number 2 Michigan State. Notre Dame's ranked 18th in the country. And this is a game where what I would like to see is I would like to see IU bench either Newkirk or Johnson, one of them. I'd sit Johnson's ass, let him watch for a while, see how badly he really wants to play. I'd start Al Durham at the point guard. And then, I would just go from there because I think at some point, if you continue to allow these guys to play selfishly and stay on the floor, there's no way this ever changes.
But you're right. It's not going to change. I'm not sure it's going to get a lot worse because our inside play continues to be strong. When we punch the ball down inside, we make things happen. And again, that's part of being impactful. And what I saw, again, was the same thing in Louisville I saw against everybody else. Early in the game, we punch it in. Get players in foul trouble. We get to the free throw line. We get our big guys involved in the game. We get them to sweat. We get them banging. And then all of a sudden, it's like Newkirk and Johnson thing, like, okay, my turn to get my points. Here we go.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they disengage from the game and disengage into their own little personal world of me, myself, and I. And I just think that's not giving this basketball program what it needs to have right now. It's not being fair to Coach Miller, his staff. It's not being fair to the rest of the kids on that basketball team who are going to be there next year that aren't getting opportunities to demonstrate what their talents are because they're going to be competing against people that Coach Miller is bringing in now, which means there's going to be some, I brought this guy in. I know what he can do. That's why I brought him in here. You're going to have to prove to me you can beat what I brought in. That's going to happen. Don't think it's not going to happen. College basketball is not like, AAU ball or team ball where you're on that team and you're anointed a starting position for as long as you want to play there. They bring new kids under you to take your spot every single year in college basketball. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, and
first-hand experience, I know.
And if you look at Notre Dame, I think the whole key to this game is Indiana's ability to defend the backcourt of Gibbs and Farrell, and because those guys can both hit the three. I think Farrell's hit 7 of his last 9 shots from the three-point line. And like I said, I think even with Bonzie Colson up front, I think IU can handle them underneath. I think the key to this, and not even so much offensively, is defensively. If Durham, Johnson, Newkirk, if these guys can defend the backcourt of Farrell and Gibbs and keep them from getting open looks at the three-point line.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't come as drastic enough that we need to set Newkirk and Johnson because it is their senior year. But I'm really becoming disenchanted with their unwillingness to take advantage of just a golden egg that's been laid down to them where with a new coach, a new program, a lot of support, really just an opportunity. And I hope it doesn't come to that. but I don't know. And I remember the lore of Indiana one time, and I when Indiana was making its undefeated run, story, and I've heard this story several times, and that Knight was coaching, and Indiana's undefeated team was starting to get a little, I don't want to use the word reading the clippings and all this, but they were starting to believe that they were as good as they were being heralded as. And Knight brought in a film one time of an Army team that he was coaching back in the 60s, just right when he got into coaching at Army. And it was a team, Army had the height regulations of nobody more than 6'7", I think, on the team, or they had all these restrictions and reservations. Academics did come first at Army, obviously, and you were there to play basketball. It was an extracurricular activity you did. You weren't recruited to West Point to play basketball. You were recruited to West Point to defend our country. And he talked about, showed the film at least one time of his team using his methodology, his skills, who just worked into the system, nice system, perfection, and drilled South Carolina. With Frank McGuire coached that team when they had a bunch of All-Americans. I think Tommy McMillan was on that team, Mike Flynn. There was a bunch of guys who went on to become All-NBA players, All-ABA players. And this team, just by using his system and doing what the coaches told him to do and following it, took a team of average kids who had a common goal, knew what their roles were, knew what their impact was, and he showed it to the IU team. I remember Abernathy telling me this. It just made you want to cry. It just made you want to cry about how poor you get so self-centered and just thinking about yourself and the contributions you make on your own rather than what you can do as a team and how strong the team is above any one individual. I've always said, you've heard me say this before, a great team will always beat a team of great individuals.
Yeah.
And I think right now Indiana's just not playing as a great team. They're not even playing as a good team. They're playing as a group, a team of good individuals. And until that changes, I think we're going to miss the opportunities to really get some height, create, slipping away an opportunity for us to get into the dance. And this could all change. They could make a run in the Big Ten. You don't know, but it's not leading that way right now because we're starting to see something coming out of the Department of Redundancy department right now. And that's the same three things occurring all over and over again. Lack of effort, lack of guard play, lack of communication, and lack of defense and team defense. And it's just, we can almost plan the show we're going to do after Notre Dame game. We can almost probably talk about what we're going to be talking about because I don't think they can fix it all this week. They've had finals all this week. I'm sure coach is giving them time to get their finals in check and get through the grading system period here and get ready. And there's probably been as much focus ever that happens over the course of the year on education and classroom. I don't say it in a negative way, but classroom definitely comes first this week, which is why you see a lot of big teams not schedule a lot of games this week. Semesters wind down and finals are being taken. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But Notre Dame's coming in here with a chip on their shoulder from the last time we played them. They're a very talented team. They're a very well-coached team. They play against top-level competition. And if we're going to continue to play like we're going to play, we're going to look good for about 30 minutes. And then Notre Dame's going to walk away with it. The same thing we saw against Louisville, against Duke, against Seton Hall, against the tough teams that we're going to be playing, which is against Michigan. Michigan only happened at the beginning of the game. And we played Michigan even for the last 35 minutes of the game. First 5 minutes killed us against Michigan. And Iowa's just not going to be very good. So,
well,
interesting. It's good.
The thing that gives me some hope in this game is Notre Dame defensively, they're an average team. They're not real good at forcing turnovers. They're 219th nationally. And the other thing that they're not real good at is rebounding the basketball, especially rebounding missed shots that they cause. And with that, if Johnson and Newkirk and Durham can all just play, they don't have to be spectacular. Just play within themselves. I think this team can win the game inside.
Well, they have to be impactful. They have to be impactful in the game other than just putting points on the clock, on the board. They have to find other ways to make impact in the ball game. If they can do that, we'll be fine. But I have yet to see that really occur with us to get a win out of it. They just got to learn. They've got to become more impactful. They've got to become leaders. They've got to step up and accept their role as seniors in this ball club, along with Colin, and they've got to provide leadership to this basketball team. And I don't think anything else really matters. I think the thing that differs between Indiana and you see probably almost a similar team to Notre Dame in Indiana, but they're just more seasoned than we are. And I think that they're more apt to listen to their coaches right now and be able to make changes in the course of a game than our team is by what they've demonstrated so far. We don't seem to be able to make the changes we need to make. Teams come in at halftime. We've led how many games have we led at halftime? Come out and teams make some changes on us, and we're not adapting well to those changes because we're not either listening to our coaches well, or we're not changing our impact in the game. We're not communicating well with changes that they made at halftime. It takes us too long to recognize it, or we get ourselves in a big enough hole that we just spend the second half digging out. I'm like you. I'm not giving up hope on this basketball club at all. I still think overall they're still better than I thought they'd be. But now my expectations are what's climbing now. And that's what happens. You said it earlier that a rising tide raises all buoys. My buoys have risen about this basketball club and what I think they can accomplish this year. I said it early. I kind of wavered on it a little bit, but I still think this team can legitimately make the NCAA championships. I still think they can make the dance.
Yeah, but I think this game is almost critical to the season because they got 3 or 4 shots at big-time teams. This is one of them, to maybe get a little bit of confidence going into the Big Ten and get things going. I think that to have hopes of the NCAA tournament, they need to get a win. It's great if they come out and play great and lose by a point, but in the end, you got to win the game.
Well, they need to get a win against a quality team. I mean, let's face it. They go from here, Notre Dame, then they go to Fort Wayne. Well, of course, that could be a quality win after the last time we played them. Tennessee Tech and Youngstown State. Okay, let's dismiss those 3 games. I don't know what those purposes those serve to anybody at this point in time. Other than you're getting into then you get into Wisconsin, at Minnesota. I mean, I'll tell you what, you talk about Wisconsin not being very good, but that's a tough place to go play. That's not an easy – those are rabid idiot fans out there. They drink a lot of beer up there, and they know how to use it to their advantage. And I played up there enough times to know that. It's not called Mad City for nothing. Minnesota, one of the 20 best teams in the country. Happy Valley's never easy to play. Northwestern's a quality ball club. Then we go to Michigan State. I mean, my God, we could be looking at 2-8 or 9 before we know what hit us in the Big Ten.
That's what I'm saying. They got to get this one. You got to win the 3 you should win, and then you've got to go to Wisconsin and win. If you do that, you put yourself in position to legitimately talk about the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's a good point on your point. It's a good observation again. Is that they have this may be the most critical win year to date for them to get to have a chance to make the dance in the tournament. And of course, I just think they need to win one of these games like this. They've had the opportunity, especially against Seton Hall, although I think probably Seton Hall was the best of the 3 teams. If you look at Duke, Seton Hall, and Louisville, I think Seton Hall probably was the best team at that point in time.
Especially when you consider that Indiana had to go play Seton Hall basically at Seton Hall.
At Seton Hall, right. In New York, right. And Louisville, I mean, I imagine Louisville, there were probably as many IU fans there as there were Louisville fans.
Hard to tell.
Unless you count all of Patino's extracurricular hires.
Hey, come on. Patino's gone. There's no reason to rip on him anymore other than the fact he's a scumbag.
Legacies live on. I like Coach Patino, so but we'll leave it at that. It is what it is. I mean, it's a very important game, but it's a broken record from what we're talking about. And sorry to all the people out there listening to us who take the time to listen to us either live or on tape. We're saying the same thing over again. We're not stupid. We're just overstating the obvious. We'd like to go find some miracle that could change this around, but I'm telling you, it's communication, it's leadership, and it's defensive teamwork, and it's those 3 things. And I'm going to keep harping on those until I see them. But I don't think until you master those 3 things, or even get good at those 3 things, let alone master them, you're going to be taken very seriously by anybody in the Big Ten.
All right, Steve. So are we going to go live after this game tomorrow?
No, we are not live tomorrow. We will tape later on in the day.
All righty. Because I think Indiana's going to win this game. I'm going to be real disappointed if they don't. I think, like I said, matchup-wise, I think Indiana should dominate the boards, which usually leads to winning the game as long as you don't get a ton of turnovers. And I don't think Notre Dame's great at causing turnovers. The other thing is Notre Dame wants to slow the game down. Indiana will want to speed it up a little bit. But when I look at the overall matchup, I think Indiana should win this game, Steve.
On paper, I think you're right. I think every indicator points to them except for the big three. Are we going to communicate? Are we going to play team defense? And are we going to show some leadership? If we do those things, I think it's a no-brainer. Well, I don't know. Notre Dame is angry about what happened last time they played here and played Indiana. And this is a nationally televised game. It's on Fox TV at 2:30. It's a nationally televised basketball game. There's a lot of reason for Notre Dame to do well in this game as well. I don't know. I would like to think we would if all indicators were heading in the right direction. But after Louisville, I was disappointed. I mean, I thought Louisville was a game we should have won. I thought we were a better ball club than Louisville. I thought we were a better coach.
Me too. And I think
Notre Dame. I think we lost to an inferior club against Louisville.
Me too. And I think Notre Dame is actually better than Indiana. I just think matchup and style-wise, this is a game Indiana can win.
Can and will are two different verbs.
That's why I said can.
Okay. I think verbs are adjectives. I don't know. I don't watch Fraggle Rock anymore, so I don't know.
How long ago did you watch Fraggle Rock or whatever it is?
I don't know. There were only 4 channels on TV. That's all I know when I watched Fraggle Rock.
Yeah. I remember the 4 channels day.
You what?
I remember the 4 channels day, but even back then, you go into the 70s, you could still watch Andy Griffith whenever you wanted.
You can still watch. I watch Andy Griffith every day.
I figured you did.
Usually, I never miss an episode of Andy Griffith show. It is still the best show on television.
Well, usually your old farts are sitting around still watching the Andy Griffith show, but
there is nobody funnier on TV than Barney Fife. You cannot ever make me believe there's anybody that could ever have more comic genius than Don Knotts playing Barney Fife.
Well, Don Knotts was a comic genius anyways.
The one time when they were trying to get Andy a wife, and he took him to this woman's social gathering, and Goober looks at him and says, "What do you think?" And Barney says, "If a bird flew through this room right now, they'd all stand up and point." Meaning they were all hunting dogs and they'd do pointers.
Yeah, we know.
That was so ahead of its time. Come on, that's great
Steve,
comedy.
The fires haven't affected your old folks' home you live at, right?
No, they have not. No,
okay.
As long as I have TV land, I'm safe. I'm safe. I found Magnum PI too. That's another great one.
Well,
I got Magnum PI on one of these channels.
I was actually watching MASH before we did this show.
Yep, MASH is another good one. Mm-hmm.
All in the Family was my favorite, though.
Oh, I could never get into Archie Bunker. That was a little too out there for me. So anyway.
Actually, a recent show that I liked, at least recent to me, would have been Cheers. I liked to see Cheers, too.
I never liked Cheers either. Sam Malone was too full of himself. He's like Johnson and Newkirk. Sam Malone was just like Johnson and Newkirk.
Yeah, but the difference.
Same mentality.
The difference is
this, though.
Hey, the difference is this. Sam Malone consistently scored. Johnson and Newkirk don't.
Oh, there you go. I did figure out one other thing, why the turnovers have dropped so much on the IU basketball program. When you do nothing but shoot, you don't pass and you don't make turnovers.
There you go.
Okay, half of this is we're having some fun now, but I do think the critical thing here right now is for those two to step up and become leaders of this basketball club. It's Big Ten season. It's time to start taking money out of the bank. The 4 years they've been depositing into the bank. They need to be thinking about leaving a legacy here, and it's not just going to come. They're not going to outscore Calvert Cheney, trust me. So they're not going to go down as the top 5 scorers in IU basketball history. But they can really take an opportunity to cement some legacy and say, here were two kids that came into a tough situation their senior year, came in with a new coach, new program, sweeping changes in the way the program's run. And these two kids stepped up and led this team when nobody thought they were going to get there. We were going to call it a transition year. They put them in the dance, and they had one big win in the tournament.
Yeah, and the thing is, legacy, when they're in the Indianapolis Final Four here in a few years, and they go to that game, everybody's going to talk to them about how they're one of the reasons that team ended up like that.
Exactly, and that's the legacy that I hope somebody's bringing to their attention right now. That they, as a former player, I'm going to tell you, somebody who's not in the top, I'm not even in the 1,000-point club at IU. There are other ways to have a legacy and to go down to games and to be, people still want to shake your hand and say thank you to you because of the legacy that you left behind during the years you played at Indiana. And for these two kids, it's a more golden opportunity than 95% of the kids get to come to IU to play. To do what they're scorers, they can score, they can statistically put some numbers up, but they have to do it with the intent that they're doing it to win games, not to immortalize themselves individually. I see Morgan. I look at that kid, and I think that kid just wants to win basketball games. And I'm really impressed with him. He's a young man. When I see the look on his face going up and down the court, the angst, the frustration, the grit and determination, there is a young man who just wants to freaking win basketball games. And I don't see anything about – I don't think that kid cares who scores. I just think he cares what the final score is at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I really do.
I do too. I think Deron Davis – I think Deron Davis is another guy you could say that about.
Right. And I can tell you how many points a game Morgan or Davis are averaging. I don't think that's not relevant. What's relevant is what I see when I watch those kids play.
Yeah, they make an impact.
I see the hustle. They make an impact. They make an impact. They're trying to do things. They're trying to bang. They're trying to – and I've seen those kids improve inside. But I'm not seeing it from our guard play. And for us to get to the next level, which is to be relevant, it's not even to be a national championship consideration. It's just for Indiana to be relevant this year, because I think Miller will get them relevant one way or another. He's that good of a coach. But for this to happen right now, start some relevance developing right now, and to have these kids be that legacy. You started our resurgence to relevance. Johnson, Newkirk, two great unheralded guards in Indiana, like a Stu Morgan or a Stu Robinson or a Winston Morgan, kids that I can think of that kind of did that same thing. They came down in some down years, and they made some big plays. A Todd Leary type player that I know those names, because while Knight was not having national championship years with those kids came in and made Indiana fun to watch, made you believe Indiana could win every game that they played in. And that's the legacy that these two young men can leave at Indiana.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
more. I hope somebody gets that into their heads, and they take it upon their own shoulders, because it's really got to come from within to be able to do that. So anyway, we'll find out Saturday.
All right, so tomorrow, Indiana-Notre Dame, keep an eye out on Twitter, Grueling Hoops, correct, Steve?
Correct, Grueling Hoops, yes.
And make sure you follow along
leave
there.
Leave questions if you have questions. If there's anything specific anybody wants to know, leave a question. Just leave a question on at Grueling Hoops on Twitter. I will make sure, because I check it before I come on, and I will look and see the specific question. I print them off, and we'll answer everybody's questions. Anything you want to know.
Yep. And
it's a basketball nature.
Oh, I was going to say, well, maybe people want to know more about your
I won't
TV
talk about
land
Isaiah
experiences. No, we're not talking about Isaiah.
I'm not passing out Coach Knight's cell phone number. Don't ask for
that. Maybe we'll just randomly call him sometime.
Well, what's the worst he could do is hang up on us.
Yeah, right? But then he'll change his number and you won't have it. So.
Yeah, that's about right. He may have already done that for all I know.
All right, guys. So remember to go follow us at Grueling Hoops on Twitter. Also at Risley34, correct, Steve?
Risley34 is my own Twitter page. So you can go there. And we have a Facebook page. We have a Grueling Truth Facebook page.
Yes,
we are not impossible to get a hold of. Maybe I'll give you Mike's cell phone number. I think I'll put Mike's cell phone number on the Grueling Hoops page.
Throw it out. I'm there for everybody.
No. We don't want that. You're the hardest working man in radio as it is.
But all right.
We're starting to sound like Newkirk and Johnson. We're talking a lot about ourselves too much. So let's get the hell out of here.
Because we complimented each other. They only compliment themselves.
Okay.
There you go.
And I hope that goes away. I hope that they learn to become leaders, and everything else will fall into place. We'll find out tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow night.
All right, so make sure you catch us tomorrow night live on Spreaker and thegruelingtruth.net. You can go to iTunes, download our app for every show, every podcast we've got. Also, check out the other sports. We do football, college football, NFL, boxing. If you want to go on the boxing site in the last week, we've interviewed former heavyweight champions Mike Weaver, Big George Foreman, former middleweight champion Mike McCallum was on today. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.